Even Anthony Mackie won't tell the truth to Ron Howard. And I get that it's an exaggeration for the show.
Is it though?
But watching it, you can't help but feel that it's probably pretty close to the truth. Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be doing another episode of The Studio. Now, if you're enjoying these episodes, or if you're just a fan of The Studio and enjoy consuming content about it, please subscribe and or follow, like the episodes, comment, email your questions and whatnot. Please also consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page at patreon.com/TheRankPodcast. Now, today, we're ranking the third episode of the first season of The Studio titled The Note, which was written and directed by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Since this is a new series, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers for this one. Now, I'm going to give a spoiler alert just because they might happen, but I'm really trying to avoid it. So I think you're going to be okay. If you're worried about getting spoiled on this, should be good. Let's dive into it, starting with the potent notables. Now, the filming style for each episode is typically an homage to a specific film or series. For this episode, it is very much an homage to Aaron Sorkin and The West Wing, with the number of walk and talks down long straight walkways and going into tight shots and in an office full of people arguing. Now, I just want to touch again on this quote that I've talked about already, I think in the past two episodes, at least in the first episode, about the exec that Seth Rogen essentially based this idea off of. This exec told him, quote, "I love movies, but now I have this fear that my job is to ruin them." While this may have given him some empathy toward movie execs, Seth Rogen I'm talking about, don't get it twisted. He's not giving them a pass. In an interview where he was talking about this show, Seth said, quote, "They could make good movies instead of bad movies. And a lot of them choose to make the bad ones because they think it'll make their lives personally more secure." End quote. So that's not somebody who's super on the side of the execs. It's sort of amazing that a show bashing executives of Hollywood would get made in Hollywood, but good on them, I guess. Now, in preparation for this show, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg spent months picking the brains of the town's most powerful gatekeepers, studio heads, marketing execs, agents, and publicists. Some meetings were formal ones at their Los Angeles office, and others were casual chats over dinner. But what Seth Rogen said was, quote, "We asked a lot of them, do you view yourselves as artists? And you could tell a lot of them wanted to say yes, and some of them straight up said yes. That was a debate we were having throughout the whole time filming the show. What is art? Are they artists?" It was very eye-opening to see how much creative ownership and pride they have over the movies that they've made. End quote. So I just thought that was interesting and wanted to throw that out there for you. But that's the last potent notable, so we can go right into the episode overview. So another episode of The Studio, and while my rankings haven't been super favorable to the first two episodes, I want to be clear, this is not me saying that I'm not interested in the show. Again, the premise of the show means that I'll be giving this show a chance for at least the first season regardless, even if I wasn't, ranking it in a podcast. But even so, I think the stories have been super interesting, and this episode is no different. We start off with Sal, Quinn, Matt, and eventually Maya, which is Chase Suey Wonders, Ike Barinholtz, Seth Rogen, and Kathryn Hahn, respectively, watching a final cut screening of Ron Howard's new movie called Alphabet City, starring Anthony Mackie and Dave Franco. So again, we get some cameos here, which continues to be fun. Now, the suits are all super excited to watch it, and they know it's going to be great because it's a Ron Howard movie, right? And it starts off intriguingly with kind of like an action scene. And then 30 minutes into the movie, it's making them laugh. And then it cuts to an hour into the movie and it's making them cry. And then it ends at the 2-hour mark and they're pumped. They've got a hit on their hands, right? But the movie keeps going and going and going. And it ends up with a nearly 3-hour runtime. And the last 45 minutes are apparently just insanely boring with almost no dialogue whatsoever, just walking around a motel. Anyway, this sets up the whole rest of the show. This is the very beginning. So that all being said, the premise of this episode is how do they give a celebrated director like Ron Howard a note to cut the last 45 minutes of his movie? The sort of frustrating, inept humor continues in this episode where you can't help but think, how could this guy actually be a studio exec, much less a studio head? Interestingly, there's one throwaway line of dialogue from Quinn that hints at Matt's capability when she says, "You give notes to directors all the time and most of them hate you. Why can't you give one to Ron Howard?" So that one line actually works to give the audience a glimmer that this guy isn't just a weak-willed wimp. Still though, that's all we've ever seen him be at this point, and I get it, but it would be nice to see this guy get a win, right? So I'm still really enjoying bringing in celebrities for extended cameos as a version of themselves. They talk about how nice Ron Howard is, and of course, he does have that reputation, but then they portray him as having a bad temper and being kind of a dick. And I loved how Anthony Mackie played himself as just sort of a realist. But the most interesting thing is how they all seem to be so obsequious and sycophantic to each other until one person is willing to tell the truth to somebody. Even Anthony Mackie won't tell the truth to Ron Howard. And I get that it's an exaggeration for the show.
Is it though?
But watching it, you can't help but feel that it's probably pretty close to the truth. Like, when you hear celebrities interviewing other celebrities, it's all about how much they love each other's work. Now, I'm not entirely cynical, you know? I think that's more often true than it isn't, but it also makes me feel like they're living in these bubbles of adulation. I would think that wouldn't be good for a person in general, though I will say I would trade places with them. So I guess there's that. Anyway, I really enjoyed the way this was put together, and as with everything else they've done so far, I find the inside Hollywood look to be super fascinating. But let's see how this episode ranked. Let's go to the rank.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. Then I add the laugh counter, which is where I tally the amount of times that the episode made me laugh. 1 point per laugh out loud that gets added to the cumulative ranking. Now the first category is story, which I gave a 5. I loved the story for this episode. Honestly, the stories so far have been the saving grace of this show, in my opinion. Not that it necessarily needs a saving grace, but the stories have been succinct and simple without being dumb. They know they've got a show on their hands and they don't need to make things too complicated. I mean, it's been great. So the next category is acting, which I gave a 4. The acting, as usual, is quite good. I dropped it a little bit because Ron Howard is just not a good actor. If he wasn't so prominent in the episode, I might have gone up a little bit, but he is. Also, Catherine Hahn is awesome. I love her acting, but it feels like she might be playing her marketing character Maya a little too over the top. And that's just a quibble. I'm not like upset about it or anything, but it does feel like it borders on, is this really a real person? To the haters out there, I do understand that it's a fictional character, but you're supposed to believe that the person could be real. Now, Catherine O'Hara is only in this episode for a little bit, but she's just always awesome. I wish we could have more of her. So let's go to dialogue, which is the next category, which I gave a 4.25. The dialogue is also strong, as is typically the case in this show. I think the only thing that struck me as negative was the choice of cousin in this. And I don't want to, again, give away any spoilers or anything, but basically they use, so to give you some context, they use the loss of cousin as like a really big meaning moment here. And I get that it was on purpose to sort of satirize Hollywood, but they played it a little too earnestly for it to work completely. And again, that's just a quibble also. It's not like I didn't enjoy it. So let's go to the next category, which is episode coherence, which I gave a 5. Succinct and simple stories provide great coherence. The series remains coherent as well, because these 3 episodes have been different enough that we haven't needed to see if there's been any growth yet from Matt. But eventually we're going to start seeing similar situations, and I'm hoping they'll show that he's learned from his mistakes. Now, the next category is character relatability, which I gave a 4.5. The characters were more relatable in this one than in the first 2 by far. Matt had a more relatable problem in this one, and I can understand not wanting to give a revered, venerable elder in your industry bad news. I can also relate to the others' frustration with their boss not having the guts to do what was needed. So it was relatable all around. So that gets us to the laugh counter. And in this case, I had 13. So the total for this episode is 35.75, and that puts it in the I'd watch it again tier. This is the first episode to break into the better third of tiers, so that's a good sign that it's getting better and drawing the audience, or at least me, in more. So I think that's kind of exciting.
Yay.
So thanks for listening or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankwithjohnandzach.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/therankedpodcast, where you can get exclusive perks. And I'll leave you with this.
Oh no.
Why did Ron Howard fire his composer for Alphabet City in this episode? Because he gave him a bad note.
Fool this man!
See what I did there? It's a music joke. To the haters out there,
Why won't you love me?